come around, I got lots to say. I swear I almost called you yesterday.
Johnny Juicer.
Let's do it. But you didn't sip it after you cheersed.
You're right, I didn't.
Just put it down.
That was like disrespectful.
Bad luck.
All right, Johnny Juicer.
What's up?
Long time coming. Welcome to the Bosco Show.
Man, it's great to be here. It feels good. It's so crazy. I always tell people, because they say, how do I know Nick? So many people, how do you know Nick? How do you mean? I knew his juice bar before I knew Nick, like years ago, you know? So it's just crazy how everything's kind of come together.
I know. It really is like this like divine timeline when you zoom out and look at it. I remember the first time I was made aware of Johnny Juicer was you posted a picture of our, like, you were in a kayak on the Chicago River.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And I think you told me that you're much skinnier then.
I was a raw vegan.
Yeah.
It's about $1.65.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like,
a
who is
guy.
this guy? Because I saw the following, you know?
Yeah.
So that's probably a great place to jump in. You're from Chicago.
Originally Chicago. Moved to the burbs when I was in 7th grade, northwest suburbs. And yeah.
How did you get turned into a juice junkie?
Man, so I have, big Italian family. And as far back as I can remember, my mom, my grandparents, they'd always be cooking a lot of pasta, a lot of dairy, a lot of, braciole, sausage, meatballs, all that stuff. And just growing up, I had issues. I always had gut issues from a young age. I mean, this is like grade school, and it progressively got worse. Junior high, I had my first colonoscopy when I was a freshman in high school, or 8th grade going into freshman year. And I was told I was lactose intolerant. I had IBS. And I would still eat the foods. I would still eat the dairy and indulge. But my problems progressively got worse as I got out of high school, because then I was going to a junior college, be eating fast food every day before and after school. And then I got leaky gut. I mean, it was just a hot mess. And then I started developing migraines and just putting on weight after I stopped. I played basketball in high school as well and all my life. But, then I stopped doing that and was partying, and just a recipe for disaster, and it got worse and worse. And then I'll never forget, I was 31 years old, and I was heading into New Year's, and I looked at a picture of myself, and I'm like, I got to do something. Something's got to change. And right before that time, I had seen Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Mm-hmm. And I had seen so many health documentaries before that, but that was the one that just did it for me, because all I knew was blending. I didn't know juicing. Like, what's juicing? And people still, it's funny because whenever I tell people about juicing, they're like, oh yeah, I juice in a Ninja. And I'm like, no, it's not juicing, Yeah. And it was just a game changer, man. I tapped into it a little bit, and, the rest is history. I took it to so many different places.
Yeah. So go back to the leaky gut. Like, when you say leaky gut, like, how does that even get diagnosed? Because I hear that term a lot,
Yeah. I guess it's like your body's not absorbing the nutrients, right? It's like that you have a valve that keeps opening or whatever. And so this is the thing. So during high school, I had a hall pass my junior and senior year, always from the doctor, because I could either go to the bathroom or I couldn't go to the bathroom. That was like, wow. Yeah. So I took advantage of it a lot. I would always go visit friends in class, but after lunch, I'd always tell my teacher, I'm like, I got an upset stomach. But and then it was very uncomfortable, Mm-hmm. And then obviously you put alcohol on it as well. It was, I think it wasn't good.
I think leaky gut is kind of what it sounds like, but things that are not supposed to be leaking out of your digestive tract and are getting into your bloodstream, and 100%. It's really causing your body to go haywire, and
and inflammation, right. and I think that's when I started developing the migraines as well. And I actually had a prescription for migraines, but I never took it because I would take Excedrin migraine because that had the caffeine.
Me too.
Yeah, I would pop. So I worked at FedEx. So back to the because I jumped all the way to juicing. But after I got out of high school and I was going to junior college. I was looking at what to do. I was going to be a firefighter. I was an EMT for a while, and then I just fell into a FedEx job that my uncle got me, and I became a driver. And being a driver, I would eat fast food. I would eat, all types of crap. But I would develop migraines so bad that I would call my manager because I would get all nauseous because I'd get sick. I would need to take Excedrin migraines and just lay down for like at least a half hour to help it pass. Otherwise, I would start throwing up, and it was just mess my whole day. So I would tell my manager, hey, I have a really bad migraine. And I would lay in the back of the truck, and another truck would come, and they'd do what's called a sweep. And he'd back up to the back of my truck, and he'd take all the boxes out and take it to the airport. And I would just sit there until my headache went away. I mean, it was crazy, man. The way I lived was crazy. But it was, when I look back now, I mean, everything I was doing it's obvious why everything was happening, So
yeah. So so you saw Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, as did I, and that was really it really changed the entire trajectory of my life, not just my health. But you took it another step. You went full vegan.
Yeah.
What was that? Was that right away? What spurred that?
So 2012 was when I saw Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And I played, I'll never forget, I saw Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. The next day I went to Bed Bath & Beyond and bought the Breville. But I bought a Breville Elite. It was like $2.99, It was all stainless steel. And Joe Cross had a 3-day juice cleanse. Joe Cross is the guy from the film. Australian man comes to America, fasts on juice, and got rid of 21 medications. So after seeing that, I went and got the juicer, and I found online Dr. Joel Furman and Joe Cross 3-day juice cleanse. So I said, wow, I'm going to do this. So I went and bought everything. I didn't even really get into that you have to juice and drink it right away if you're using a centrifugal juicer. But I just juiced everything, and I prepared it for work for the next week. And I'll never forget, after the first day, I drank I did a 1 day. I drank the juices. I was fine. But the next day, I'm at work. I had an excruciating migraine. I was starving. And my girlfriend at the time, which was doing it with me, was she called me, and I was about to go on my break, and and she's like, how you doing? How you feeling? And I just popped Excedrins because my head was pounding. I'm like, this isn't normal. And I ended up going to Culver's. For those who don't know, it's a fast food joint here in the Midwest. And I got a cheeseburger, cheese curds, French fries. And it's I got my high back, I was like, oh.
Got your fix.
Yeah,
right?
I got my fix, exactly. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. And then I kind of stopped juicing for a little bit after that. I would make juice here and there, but after that experience, I was like, this isn't for me. But that's when later that year, I looked at myself in pictures. I'm like, I got to do something. And that's when I committed to doing a 3-day fast starting the new year. And I did. And then I incorporated, my thing was I'm going to incorporate 1 32-ounce juice every day. And that's what I did. And that's when things really started changing for me. I started feeling more energy, more clarity, and the better you feel, the more you want to do. So it just started taking off.
Yeah. And then that's exactly how it went for me too. It was I started juicing in the morning, and for me, it was I didn't have any serious health conditions other than I was always battling weight management. And I was also abusing some serious toxins, I was using substances. I was drinking a lot, and then that would lead to a whole slew of other problems. But the first time I juiced was after I saw the movie. I went out and bought the Breville, loaded my fridge, and
funny.
And I was hungover.
Weren't you so proud about your fridge too? You're like,
yeah. Oh, it looks like a beautiful. Yeah, it looks like that. That's how refrigerators are probably supposed to look.
Yeah.
And that first juice, I chugged it, and it was like the instant cure. It felt like that juice washed away my sins, and in more ways than one, physically, but then all those anxious, guilt, shame, that were pretty constant, especially when you're partaking in, an unhealthy lifestyle in general. And so it was just like that. It was the way I wanted to start my day every day, because I wanted to feel like that. And then, then I'm juicing for lunch. Then I'm juicing before, making juice before my workout. And then, and then I started kind of like making healthy recipes, just, not following any, but just like finding like the creative side in it, the fun in it. But like I said, you took it a whole nother level. So what inspired you to make the leap from, juicing for health and to reverse, all of your chronic health issues to vegan, or ultimately raw vegan?
Yeah. Well, back to taking it to a whole nother level. I mean, I think it's just the Scorpio in me. I'm like an extremist. When I get into something, it's like tunnel vision. And that's what was happening. It's like, and I think if you give anybody a juice who's never had it before, they're all going to say, wow, like that felt good. There's no way you can drink that and not think it feels good. So I started doing the 32 ounces, and then I would bring it every day. That was my commitment. That was my intention going into the new year. And that was 2013. And I watched Forks Over Knives and ended up going vegetarian after. I was vegetarian for a little while before I went vegan. And they had all the studies, the China study, like with, heart disease. And so I was like, wow, I can go vegetarian. I go, but I'll never go vegan because I'm Italian. Love my pizza, Chicago pizza, Gino's
The cheese, dude. Cheese is my vice.
Giordano's, Gino's, Lou Malnati's, all of it. So I said I wasn't going to do that. But the juice was like the 32 ounces started turning into 64 ounces. I still do a 64 ounce mason jar that I would bring to work. Then I would bring 3 mason jars to work. And I mean, I would just be drinking, getting high off this stuff. And, like back in the day when I first got into vegetarian, vegan and all that, there was something, and I don't know if they still call it, but they'd say raw till 4, where you drink it or you're eating raw food and then you have a cooked meal at night. And that's kind of like what I was doing without knowing what it was. I was literally drinking liquids at FedEx, feeling amazing, losing weight. Now I was like 230, 235. And I was shedding weight without even like being vegan. This is just off the green juices. Like I felt like I was getting leaner. I was emptying a lot. So fast forward, so March was when I went vegetarian. March was when I went vegan. February was when I went vegetarian of that year, 2013. And then I saw Earthlings, the film Earthlings. And I cried. I had never cried in a film, but like I was like, what the hell? It's like they go into all the slaughterhouses. They show you, all of them. And they show you like how they're treated, all the antibiotics, all the steroids, everything they're pumped with, how they kill them, how they slaughter them, how a pig is supposed to live till they're 18 and they're pumped and slaughtered at 6 months, for us to eat, And you think about, like I started thinking about the idea of, because I was going through spiritual change as well. I was having an awakening. So then I started thinking about all the anxiety and all the stress that people suffer from and what those animals see and what they're pumped with before they're slaughtered. And then we carry on that energy. So that was what I was really thinking about. And that next night, I said that day after watching that, I'll never eat animals again. That was like my commitment. And, that was it. And then in the vegan, what I was saying, like with the raw till 4, that's where the raw till 4 came in, because I was drinking juices and I was just trying to figure out cooked meals. There was no Beyond Meat back then. There was no Impossible. There was like Amy's Pizza and like, Amy's Burritos, stuff like that. So everything else would be like something I would make at home, which was, actually it was my girlfriend at the time. She would make like rice and sauteed vegetables and tofu and stuff like that. But I really wasn't a fan of that. I felt like I was really starting to really thrive off the juices, the liquids. I was making smoothies, and then I started eating a lot of fruit. And I started looking online and YouTube, because obviously nobody in the Chicagoland area I didn't know many vegans besides Karen, but I saw Karen Calabrese online, and because I was looking vegan Chicago, and I saw she had a restaurant and she was a raw foodist for like 40 years. And I'm like, I got to meet this woman. And I connected with her, and I saw her energy and vibrancy and everything about her. And I'm like, wow. And, we became really close. And then I was looking on YouTube and saw like Fully Raw Christina and this guy, Dan, the Life Regenerator, and all these people that were living in this lifestyle that I was learning from, that it's like a whole nother world that I didn't know about. And like the way some of this information was so dummied down that, it just made sense to me.
Yeah.
So I just kept taking it to another level. And then I'm like, hey, I want to be a raw vegan. And actually, me and my ex at the time, we both did a raw vegan challenge. It was a 21-day challenge. Never looked back after that. So, and I mean, it was, I started eating cooked food back again in 2020 after I lost my mom. But during that time of eating the raw food, I got to say it was some of the most creative, some of my most spiritual transformation I've had. Every day was a good day. Every day I woke up with energy, inspired. I was going through this transformation where I wanted to inspire people. And I mean, it was the first time in my life I felt like I was starting to develop purpose,
Yeah. That's amazing. So what was the total duration that you did? Like, how long were you raw vegan?
5.5 years. Yeah. It was almost 6 years.
And you got down to what weight?
My weight, when I was raw, I couldn't gain a pound. I couldn't lose a pound. I mean, I would kind of fluctuate. It'd be between like 165 and 168 anytime I got on the scale.
What do you walk around at now?
I'm like 190, 195,
Okay.
like around there. So yeah,
What do you think that is? Like, cause that's pretty much, the standard. When people go raw vegan, they get like really skinny.
yeah.
What do you think the big differentiator
Well, it's the
is?
calories. I think it's really the calories. I know myself, I was not consuming 2,500 calories a day, but I was getting massive amounts of nutrients in juice form and through my smoothies. And like I would eat so much before, so many calories that were dead calories. As now I'm getting all these nutrients that with little calories, but I felt great. I was never hungry. I was always satiated, after doing juice cleanses, because I started doing juice cleanses like crazy. Like I felt like my palate had reset. So I wasn't like addicted, especially when I was raw. We get addicted to potato chips and all this stuff. I never craved none of that stuff. Those cravings go away. And fruit was my go-to. I loved drinking my juices, having my smoothies and eating fruit. I started learning about fruit because I grew up with bananas, grapes, and apples. And all of a sudden, here comes dragon fruit. Here comes persimmons. Here comes all this stuff never even heard of before. Soursop, that's one of my favorite fruits, So it was just a whole new world of awakening that, I just never even knew existed. So, and still, I'm still learning about fruits. I just ate a fruit about a month and a half ago that I never had before, never even heard of. So,
Yeah. What was it?
I forgot the name already, but it was from Sassoon.
Yeah.
But like black sapote and just all these things that you ask a regular person, they never heard of it.
Black sapote is chocolate pudding fruit.
It's like
right?
a chocolate pudding fruit.
Yeah,
It's
I've had
incredible.
that. That's
Yeah.
like I saved the seeds and had Victoria sprouting it in our window for 6 months.
And jackfruit, like jackfruit's like one of my, even now, like I said, on Christmas, I had barbecue jackfruit sandwiches.
Yeah.
So, there's just, it's so diverse. People think going vegan or even going raw is like you're depriving yourself. But the cool thing about raw is there's no limitations. Eat as much as you want. Everything you're eating is like water and fiber, and nutrients. You're just constantly
living. It's got that life force.
Right.
And
Exactly.
And that's something that I wish more people were aware of or understood, was like the different kinds of energies that we're harnessing from different foods. And there's a big difference between the energy that you're getting from like animal flesh and plants.
Yeah.
It's literal light energy. Like that's not that term. It's because the sun, that plant is harnessing the energy from the sun, and then you're eating it or juicing it and taking on that energy. It's like photosynthesis from the sun to the plant. We consume it, and then we've got it's really leveraging the sun, which is like the
It doesn't get any
source
better.
of life.
Like you just said it. It's like you're eating dead food. I was eating so much processed, dead, fast food. Never felt no life. And then I started eating all this raw food, all this food connected to the earth that you're picking and eating. And if you're eating food connected to the earth, you're going to start feeling more connected. And that's what happened. It was like, and I didn't care no more. I started like blocking out everything else in my life. I was like, this is incredible. I started having like visions of what I wanted, and I wanted to be places where this food grew every day. And I wanted to just keep inspiring people and teaching people about this stuff that even now, even today, even family that I have doesn't know about a lot of this stuff. They know about juicing, but they don't know the levels of it. They're still stuck on Western medicine and take this pill to treat this symptom, So.
Yeah. Speaking of levels, like that to me is like maybe the worst one of all is the juice. Like I feel like juice it gets somewhat of a bad rap in a lot of circles because what we grew up with, understanding what juice was, which was this pasteurized, usually from concentrate. That's a different product than the raw living juice that you're making or buying from a shop like High Vibe that's pressing it several times a week, bottling it. And it's when a juice is pasteurized, it's like it's cooked and that life force is gone and the nutrients are the integrity of the vitamins and nutrients and the bioavailability, it's all thrown off. It's all out of whack.
Yeah.
What about when you were raw vegan? Were you consuming like a lot of nuts? Like a lot of the, I guess like the recreated meals, that I'd see at the raw vegan restaurants?
Yeah, it's funny because you say that because when I first got into it, I was mostly liquids and fruit. I was like kind of fruitarian that drank green juice. Then I met Karen and I started kind of doing like an exchange with Karen. I would go to Karen's almost every day for like a year. So I would drive from the suburbs all the way down. She had a place on Halstead. And she had a wellness center where I would get colonics. She had saunas there, infrared saunas. And I would just learn from her. I was like a sponge. I would go to her seminars. And I mean, because she's just got so much information. And I would help her with her social media, because she wasn't too tech savvy. And the thing was, we would do an exchange where she would send me home with a box of raw food. And when I first got into raw food, it's like, I would always be like, oh, well, I can't eat that stuff. But then when I went to Karen's and I saw she has like raw deep dish pizza and raw Doritos and I'm like, what? So I never knew about none of that stuff. So I would take this stuff home, raw cheesecakes. And I started eating that way raw a lot. Like I would do that at night. But what I realized was it was probably worse off for me for a little bit than eating cooked food because it was just so nut heavy. It's like you have a pecan almond crust with a cashew cream filling and then a shredded nut on top. It's like it digests terrible. It didn't digest well. Yeah. So, but it was good food. I mean, it tasted really good. Her cheesecakes were amazing and all of it was amazing, but it just didn't sit as well as, eating fruits and vegetables, juicing and having my smoothies. So I really didn't do a lot of nuts besides like during that time when I was indulging a lot in the gourmet raw. It was more or less, I would throw hemp seeds sometimes in my green juice. Actually, that was something I would do a lot. And I still do is I'll throw hemp seeds in my green juices. Sometimes chia seeds in my smoothies, stuff like that. What
do you mean hemp seeds in your green juices? How do you do it? Just throw as
it
a
in.
floater?
Just sprinkle it in as a floater, yeah. They'll sometimes sink
Used
to the
bottom.
bottom.
Do like a rum floater? Now it's hemp seeds.
Exactly. Exactly. Because they were easy to take down. They didn't really have much of a taste. So, but
I used to get from Karen's my favorite one that I remember was her ravioli because it was like a cashew cheese.
Yeah,
was like the filling in the
so
ravioli.
Funny you say that.
And they were the radish. They were like radish folded with the noodles.
Yeah. Did you ever go to her brunch?
No, I don't. I don't think so.
She would have on her brunch, or she would have a brunch buffet, and she would make like her almond milk all freshly pressed, and then she'd have like raw cereal. I would always have that with like cut bananas. It was really good. But yeah, her buffet was awesome every Sunday.
Yeah, we used to go. My cousin was largely responsible for kind of exposing me to some of these foods and restaurants. And we used to go to a place called Cousins. It was on Irving Park, I think. It was like a Turkish raw vegan place.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, the falafel wraps were what I liked. They were like pistachio wrapped in collard greens, and there was like a buffet thing, and he would get mad and yell at my cousin for eating too much falafel. And it was like the soup Nazi. Yeah, he's like the raw vegan Nazi.
Yeah.
What about
those are out there too? I mean, people are crazy. There's people in the raw food world that don't eat salt, that don't do, and I was all about spices. Like if I would make, because sometimes I would make like zoodles with like some type of sauce, and I would throw a little, sea salt in there, some spices and stuff. There's some raw vegans that don't believe in any of that stuff. It's just fruit, Even when I would green juice, like I'll never forget. I'll even name drop a Mindful Diabetic Robbie. He used to always say, yeah, juicing's not good, man. You shouldn't be doing the juicing. And then all of a sudden he started doing the celery juice after a while, after he saw that that's like what I was doing. Cause I would go to, help him at his, retreats that they would do, the Mastering Diabetes. So yeah, juicing's, it's a game changer.
Yeah. How about now? Do you rely on, or do you consume a lot of like nuts and seeds now?
I don't. And I think it's because, I don't know. I don't really. Sometimes, like I said, I do the chia seeds and my squirrel eats all the nuts. I buy the nuts for him. I don't really consume a lot of nuts. I will take that back. For the last like month and a half, I made pecan milk because I have a milk maker, and I've been making like nut milks for my smoothies just to drink. Yeah, it's good stuff. But like just eating nuts, like sometimes I'll have like a Brazil nut, right? Because it says like it's your daily use of selenium or whatever. But besides that, no, I'm not really a big.
That's pretty impressive. So, I mean, I would think that being on a plant-based diet, like you'd be looking at like nuts and seeds for a lot of your protein intake.
I mean, I do a lot of, I will eat organic tofu here and there. I do a lot of mushrooms. I do a lot of, I do avocados.
How about legumes?
Not really. I really don't do beans or legumes at all.
Really?
Which is crazy. Yeah. So, but even when I was raw, like I was skinny, but I was lean and I felt strong. So now like eating the cooked food, I feel like it's kind of like grounded me more, but it's also like put on more, obviously like more density on the body. It's like, because if you carb up, to me, it's, I don't know. I feel the protein thing is,
I'm with you, dude. I think the protein spell is out of control.
Yeah.
I don't know. The last year, I basically limited my meat consumption to once a week. And, I was juicing a ton. I'm always juicing a lot, but I was doing, I would do like these durations where I'd like cleanse like half the week, or I'd just basically like juice fasting with, there's some salads that we do that are like, part of it. But, I lift weights, I work out, and protein was certainly like never a concern. But now it's like, there's a serious craze, and with my, recent decision to go plant-based now for this next year, I've been, I guess, like in preparation of it. And last year I started incorporating more legumes and playing with them, because nuts and seeds, they've never really, I guess since I cleaned my diet up, nuts and seeds have always felt really inflammatory for me and like hard to digest. I could feel that. And I didn't know if it was like, I kind of had a theory or have a theory that like that your body adapts, and your gut biome specifically like adapts to whatever you're feeding it. And what seems to not be the option is like eating everything all the time.
Yeah.
So I was wondering like, if you do away with meat, because I found that with legumes, if I would have them after, and this could be like even like a day or two after I had like a steak or chicken or something like that, like an animal protein, that I would get like just indigestion, bloated, gas up, and I thought it was like the legumes, everyone like blames the legumes for that. But then when I would have them at the end of a cleanse, smooth sailing. Mm-hmm. So it seems to be like this, like, like creating like a traffic jam of sorts in your gut,
Yeah. That's what I felt too, is like, our digestive system's like our most overworked system in the body. And when we're constantly bombarding it with all these foods, that it doesn't. And that's the thing. When I was raw, I was doing spirulina. I was hardcore on spirulina too, and amino
powder
acids,
form or powders or
powder
what?
form. Yeah. There's a farmer's market in LA that I go to that actually grows it fresh, and it's living spirulina. Like you can just add it to your smoothies. It's pretty gnarly.
It's a blue or green?
It's green.
Yeah.
But yeah, the protein's got to break down in your body, So when you're juicing and having smoothies and eating, like did you know watermelon, like a seeded watermelon has like 35 grams of protein in it?
No, nobody would, right?
Nobody
That's
would.
wild. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, I feel like we're just so stuck on, we need 30 grams of protein. We need 20 grams, and everybody's buying the protein bars. Everybody's buying all these synthetic proteins. And it's like fruit has protein, might have 1, 2, 3 grams. But when you're eating food, like real food, you're getting, I've never heard of somebody having protein deficiency ever.
No.
It's the first thing somebody always still,
Yeah.
11 years later, still tells me, where are you getting your protein?
I think I think
like
maybe that craze is like, maybe it started, or that, I guess, like belief system is maybe based in like the idea or the logic that like, if you fill yourself up with protein, then you're going to be consuming less of like other junk.
Well, I think it's the milk and or the meat and dairy industry as well. I mean, they've pushed that like for generations too. You know,
Right.
You need milk to build strong bones. You need meat to build muscles. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so Popeye got it right, but
Yeah, the spinach.
Yeah.
Dude, I've always loved spinach. Well, I appreciate that you're
got to be careful with the oxalates now.
that you're not. Yeah, I appreciate that though, that you're not you're not like, super intentional about how you're getting your protein.
Never was.
Mm-hmm.
Never. I mean, unless you're trying to be like, be a big bodybuilder or compete, or you're like an infant that's growing into a child, or what's with the protein? Like what?
Yeah. I mean, protein is like a building block. And if you're an adult, your body's been built. It's built. It's there, So I think that idea that you need to keep like, so many grams of protein. Yeah, I don't.
And as we get older, again, like our gut, we start losing more gut acid. Our digestive system isn't as strong. So it's like, I see these people, like guys like John Rose, and like I said, a guy named Dan McDonald. Look these guys up. They're in their 50s and their 60s that are lean, but they look strong, and they've been vegan 30, 40 years, So it's like, I think when I'm 60, when you're 60, 70, I mean, you go out in public and you see everybody walking around. Everybody's overweight, at least over 30 years old.
It's beyond that,
Even
man.
in LA, I live in LA. It's to me, when I moved there, because I thought it was one of the most health conscious places, which we learned it wasn't in a few years back. But, a lot of people are, unless you go to the gyms or you're at the beach, like a lot of unhealthy people out there still.
Yeah. And I feel for the people too, because when I go to, you being in LA, me being, in Chicago, and now spending in Northern Michigan, where there's this awesome organic co-op grocery that we're a part of, and it's like better than Whole Foods. I forget that most places don't have access to the foods that we do, like just yesterday I was driving from Northern Michigan to Chicago, and I stopped at like this market. There was like a gas station with a grocery store attached to it. And I ran in to use the bathroom. And anytime I go into a normal grocery store, I just feel like I'm like in a different dimension, like the even the lighting, everything is like low vibration. And the food, I was like, I'll be zipping through an aisle and I'll like just looking, and it's not what I consider food anymore. And then you look around, the people look like kind of a different species at this point. It really is. Yeah. It's almost like these foods, these highly processed and GMOs and who knows whatever, Frankenfoods, like it's creating kind of like GMO people or something,
And so many people say, your gut is your second brain or your first brain or whatever people think, but your gut's all jacked up. That's why, there's a lot of unhealthy, stinking thinking people out there.
Yeah, man. I think that depression is a symptom of
100%
of gut.
And that's something I'll say too. Before, going raw and going vegan and getting into juicing, I'm not going to say I was like depressed, but I wasn't happy.
Sad.
Yeah.
Right.
I know I didn't enjoy the way my life was going. It was like this just cycle of going to work, can't wait to Friday to go party, do it again, be sick, and it was just crazy, wake up with hangovers, pop your pills. And I'm like, is this it? And it's sad because, I even look at my family, like most of my family, and, I've been doing this for 11 years, and everybody in my family's got a juicer, but still, like, there's still such a disconnect with the food they eat,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they don't realize that, I feel like people just think like cancer or heart disease or whatever just comes out of nowhere. We're old. It's
like it's bad
naturally
luck.
supposed to happen.
Yeah,
It's bad luck.
Yeah.
But, it's our choices. It accumulates, over time. And it's just sad to see. And then by the time you do get diagnosed with something, or, who are you going to trust? You're going to trust the doctor or somebody who you haven't been paying attention to? And I'm not talking about myself, but there's thousands of people all over, preaching health and wellness. And it's just sad, man.
I wanted to ask you about changes in your body since you, because as I've evolved my diet and, relying on more juice, raw foods, and just like lighter diet, I've noticed some changes. And being in northern Michigan now, every time I go out for a run or to shovel snow, I think I'm like conscious of like, man, I get a lot colder than I used to. And I wanted to ask you about that. Is that something that you've experienced? Like, as you lighten up your diet, do you feel like you're like get colder than you used to?
Dude, when I was a raw vegan, I was raw when I was a driver at FedEx, and I would wear a snowsuit that they allowed people, if you wanted to, and I would wear my FedEx uniform shirt over it, like in the winter. And Karen actually taught me, I think I told you this, I would put cayenne pepper in my socks. It would keep my feet warm.
It works?
It would. It totally works. And it doesn't get all nasty. It works. But 100%. And I'll even remember when I did my 40-day juice fast, and I was working with my buddy who has a functional medicine office in Elk Grove, and I had my own office. I was health coaching his patients and, my clients. And during that fast, I had 2 space heaters on me in the office, scarf and jacket in there. And mind you, it was like 70 degrees in the office. But because I was like 145 pounds on that fast.
Yeah.
It was like the lowest I
skin
got.
and bones.
At 6'2", so it's, yeah. But even in California now, when it gets down to like 50s, I'm like, so yeah, when I got back here, and I never used to be that way. I used to run the other way. I was always
so hot. It stays that way. It's not like something your body recalibrates to. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. All right. What about any other interesting changes to your body since changing your diet?
100%. I always used to, me and my buddies, one of my buddies used to fight all the time. We'd go out, get in bar fights, and I would help it, or, I wouldn't be starting the fights, but I'd sometimes be in them.
Yeah.
And, there was always more of an edge I had, I feel like. I always felt like I had like more aggressive edge. And, when I stopped eating animals, it's like it kind of fills you with, I don't know the word, maybe compassion and just more patience and, more connection with all beings, animals. I'll never forget when I was at FedEx, and I used to ground, right? When I started going raw and I was drinking juice, I would park my truck and I would find this pond, and I would always take my shoes and socks off before I even knew what the hell grounding was. Before there was all these videos and the earthing movie and all that, I would just do it naturally. It just felt good. Put my feet in the grass and I'd walk. And I'll never forget, it was the summer and I was eating a watermelon. This is the first year I was raw. And I'm sitting there eating it, and these geese were coming, and I thought they were going to ask for food. And they literally like just sat next to me. And I was just looking, I'm like, they probably sense that I don't eat them, or I don't eat animals. They probably feel that like
that's real, man.
It is like the squirrels. I got all squirrels all over. Even at my dad's house in Bloomingdale, he's like, "You're feeding the squirrel over here." He didn't come in my hand yet, but he comes close to me. So it's just weird. I've never had that with animals. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like now I connect with animals differently.
Yeah. I completely agree. And that's like part of that is it's not like the number one reason why I'm making this switch to plant-based diet. I don't even know if that's the term, but this like modified vegetarian. I'm not going to eat animal flesh. That's the new commitment for me. And I guess like the number one driver wasn't for animals, but it's definitely like the number two. It's like the first reason is energetically. I've just found that as I've raised my vibration through juice and lighter diet and, which basically brings with it this like spiritual awakening and, just like spiritual connections on another level. Your awareness, which is what consciousness is, awareness of everything. And you start to like look at foods differently, like a burger isn't a burger. That was an animal. Where'd it come from? What was it eating? Did you really need to eat that? Like, did I really need to eat that?
Yeah.
But I've spent a lot of time in northern Michigan in the wilderness over the last several years. And I've just had a lot of these extraordinary experiences and interactions with animals. And many times it feels like they're like these messengers from the spirit realm. And, and we had friends that have dairy cows and we get raw milk from a lady and she does all the things. Like she's like raising pigs and chickens and they're slaughtering animals and doing all these things. And like, I go to these people's houses that are doing like the full on homesteading thing, which is like, I appreciate that that's like the way to do it if you're going to do it. And you just see that like a pig is like a dog. Like that's how they act. They like run up to you like, like they're that's what they're like. And then you look in the eyes of like this giant cow or the horses and you feel the sentience and then wild deer, or we had a herd of deer a couple of years ago that were coming to our house, like our property, like every day. And they got really comfortable. There was an apple tree right outside our kitchen window. They would come right up to it. They wouldn't, first they were skittish if they would run away if we were in the kitchen, but that, they got more and more comfortable. And it got to the point where like we would be out on the back deck sitting at the table and they would like walk up to us, and I had a moment one day where when we were moving out of that house and it was a very emotional time, it was when I decided we were going to move back to Chicago. I needed to be here for the business. And we were moving out of this house and that house we had a lot of just so much growth spiritually that took place while we were there. And those deer, there was always this one, like there was a herd of them. And whenever they would finally take off, there was always one that would kind of lag behind this doe, which is a female deer. And when we were going to be moving, like I think it was our packing day, we were moving the next day. And I went out in the backyard and I was like videoing that. The property was stunning. It was this beautiful woods with ravines and the sun was kind of shining through the woods. And I saw what looked like the shape of a deer. And okay, first when I walked out there, I saw a bunch of the deer were on the ridge and they took off. But then I was looking and the sun was shining through and it looked like I could make out like the outline of one. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't sure. So I moved so that the sun wasn't like obstructing my vision of it. And I saw it was the deer. And it was that one. It was like the one that was like super connected with us, right? And I had this moment where I was like looking at it and I was thinking like how much I was going to miss this place. And the deer were very much a part of that. And I had this like moment of almost like telepathy or something where I felt that deer. Like it's not like I didn't hear it, but I felt it communicating like that they were going to miss us too. And And then the next day when we went to, we were loaded up, we were leaving, and we had a U-Haul trailer packed that I was pulling with my truck. Victoria had the kids in the SUV behind us, and we were pulling out of the driveway and look up, and the whole herd of deer were like up on the ridge, like seeing us off, right? And so we were driving back to Chicago. We were only probably 10 or 15 minutes away. And I was actually shooting a video. I remember when this happened. And Victoria's, I'm pulling a U-Haul trailer, and Victoria's in the SUV behind me with the kids. We're driving on this highway, and while I'm shooting this video, I don't remember what I was speaking. It was like it was very emotional for me, to be like moving back from there back to the city. And we just like at that point, like I love Chicago, but I just like what the city offers is not what I'm looking for anymore. Like I don't care about restaurants, bars, sports, entertainment. I want to be in nature. It's just where I'm at right now, and like the way that, the lifestyle that we want to live. But so when we were moving back, it was an emotional time for me because I really loved, I was trying to buy the house that we'd been renting, so it was like emotional. Yeah. And I was giving this video and I was really hyping myself up, like I'm going back to Chicago. We're going to launch this shipping. I'm on a mission. This is like the task at hand. And that was like the mindset. And it's the mindset I had to have. But while I was driving and shooting this video, a deer ran out in front of me. Now, let me rephrase that. It tried to cut me off is how I would describe it. This deer didn't run across the road in front of me, right? It was like it was a
running you off the road
cornerback or a safety picking up a wide receiver downfield. It was like trying to cut me off. And I swerved to miss it. And I did. But the U-Haul trailer I was pulling, clipped it. And I just looked in the side mirror and I was like, this is actually on video. I'll show it to you later. I was like, oh my God. And you saw it like kind of like spin on its side on the ground. I called Victoria and she's like, oh my God, what do we stop? I'm like, no, what are we going to do? Like we're packed up, our kids, the dogs, like we're going. And it was like, I replayed that and there was some other crazy experiences with deer, like, around that same time that I'd had like on a run in Sleeping Bear Dunes, this deer like ran out, like swam out into the abyss in the water. Anyway, I was like, it felt like they were like, it was symbolic from some sort of message that was being sent from the spirit realm, whatever you want to call it. And as I played, I played through that scene, I could remember it like it was yesterday. And, I told Victoria, I'm like, I think that was the deer. I think it was the one that was like, almost like it was trying to stop us. Is what it seemed like, and I know that sounds wild and deep and like I could be totally off, but that's sure what it felt like. And, and like my mindset after that happened was like, like we're going to do what needs to be done right now. And like, nothing is going to stop what, this like mission that I'm on, even a deer that I really liked, but just like, that and a lot of other interactions and these like experiences with animals that just made me it just brings your awareness to a place where like you start viewing them differently, and then you start like thinking about your food choices, and then the idea or this practice that's ingrained in us of like eating for pleasure, constant pleasure, and at the expense of these sentient beings, which is what they are. And then you take it to the other level, which is like, and I something happened with my body back in late 2020. I became really, and it was after I had started cleansing like very intensely and regularly. And it was because I was in this real like high stress, like kind of like warrior kind of mode in 2020 here in Chicago, like the whole city was shut down, the masks, just everything. It was very intense. And I just was just like juicing all the time. It was like almost like I was too stressed to eat. And I'm just like, I'm just going to juice and just like vibe high, you know? And then that was like when I really like started getting active on social and really stepped in front of the camera and really assumed what I always should have been, which was the face of the brand I built and the company I built and the team, you know? And at the end of that year, like fall of 2020, I'd say, I became really sensitive or highly perceptive of energy. And it could be people, and it could be people nowhere in my vicinity. I could feel their energy, especially if it in regards to me. And also these like EMF frequencies, these like non-native electromagnetic frequencies. And it was maddening. You know, we were living in the city. Like I said, it was like high stress, Victoria, like, and we both just started experiencing all of these symptoms that were bizarre and like super unnerving. You know, like for me, I was like waking up with headaches all of a sudden and eye aches and kind of like neck tension, insomnia. You know, I was like waking up in the middle of the night every night. And Victoria had like metallic taste in her mouth for months. And she's always had autoimmune challenges. And, you know, so she was like getting like bumps and like kind of like hive things on her skin. And she had 2 miscarriages that year. And, you know, and I felt like I didn't know what was going on with me, but it like I could sense that it was the phones because I could feel it. You know, I could feel that that was like the source of it, or at least EMFs, you know? And really the straw that like was like the last straw was our daughter at that time. Sylvia was like, I think she was like 2, maybe even less than 2. I think she was about 2 years old. And her hair started falling out. And then we found like a lump on the back of her head. And that was when I was like, all right, it's time to go. We got to get out of here and like kind of like reassess what's happening. And at that point I'd been pushing. By then it was like 6 months later, you know, now it was like spring of 21 when we moved. But ever since that time, I became like, the way I would joke and say it was like, I'm like a walking antenna. I could feel everything, you know, like I'd walk in, and it's a superpower in a lot of circumstances, you know, if you're not in like a high EMF or like negative energy kind of environments. But, you know, I'd walk in our shops and I'd, you know, call Eric and be like, hey, what's up with so-and-so? You know, like one of the other staff. And he'd be like, I don't know. What do you mean? I'm like, vibe is off, miserable. You don't, how do you not sense that? You're working with them all day. I've been in here 30 seconds. And he's like, I don't know, dude. You know? So, but it's almost like, it feels like, I think that, I guess like long story short is like, I think that we all have extra sensory abilities that either require us to like do the work to activate them, or like maybe we had them from birth, but they got dulled through all the toxins and the heavy metals and the, you know, the programming and the overconsumption that's ingrained in us. Because to get through that like maddening, this like headaches and insomnia, I was trying everything. I was hacking it. I was, you know, it got to the point where I was like turning off circuit breakers in the rooms I was sleeping in, and to get sound sleep at night. And one of the
Come around, I got lots to say. I swear I almost called you yesterday. Sometimes